Hey, what's up guys? John here. The White House is preparing to issue major sanctions on Russia starting tomorrow.
President Biden warned today that Russia is about to pay the price in the form of major sanctions
for the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
In less than 24 hours. Right here, U.S. prepares for major sanctions against Russia. Now, Vladimir Putin's already responded to this, saying that to use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the U.S. political leadership. He continued, it is the main weapon used by the United States to preserve its power across the world. As soon as the political leadership decided to use the U.S. dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to the American power. It is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake.
We have put the most historic sanctions in history on Russia, that we've done all we can. So what else is there to do?
Now you think about what's happening here. Over the last couple of years, Americans, we've been kind of in this battle where back and forth, everything is, one country against the other, and all this drama, all this chaos, all this uncertainty. But the big battle here is going to be our lifestyle, maintaining our living standards, because something big is about to happen here. And this is all connected. This $10 trillion treasury sale that is going to be happening this year. And it's not just this year. Every single year we need to sell over $10 trillion in treasuries to other countries in which we are, causing beef with and causing problems with. We sell $10 trillion of treasuries every year for the next 6 years. Otherwise, interest rates are going to continue to go up, not down. Borrowing costs are going to go up. Credit card interest rates, everything are going to basically get more and more and more expensive. And so as our cost of living continues to rise and our borrowing costs will continue to rise, you have India, you have South Africa, you have Russia and China and these other countries working together with cheap fossil fuels, cheap labor that are going to be competing against us. Now we're going to be walking into some pretty uncertain times here. And in this video, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show you the facts, show you exactly what's going on to help you and position you for this new normal. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. YouTube will share this content to educate the people about what's going on in America's economy. And if you'd like to fix your credit, we would love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item on your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video and schedule a free strategy session for tomorrow. Take a look at this. So, U.S. prepares for major sanctions against Russia. Biden administration is preparing major sanctions against Moscow in response to the death of the Russian opposition leader, a White House official said on Tuesday. Now, look at this. $10 trillion in U.S. government bonds for sale in 2024. The Fed isn't going to cut rates in May. Wages are growing and productivity is growing too. But it may not be able to cut rates anytime soon. A record $8.9 trillion in U.S. government debt will mature over the next year. See the chart below. The government deficit in 2024 will be $1.4 trillion. And the Fed has been running its balance sheet by $60 billion every single month. The bottom line is that someone will need to buy more than $10 trillion in government bonds this year. That is more than 1/3 of the U.S. government debt outstanding and more than 1/3 of the U.S. GDP. Repeat that trend every year for the foreseeable future. That's almost $11 trillion every year for the next 6 years. That's happening at a time when foreign investors have been shrinking their ownership in U.S. bonds since 2015. So much for the theory that we should not worry about the accumulating debt because interest rates would always be low. The theory that demand for any way the U.S. debt was endless will now be tested at a large scale. Either way, it means the federal government is refining its debt at a high rate. There's something else to watch. Tomorrow, the Congressional Budget Office will release new baseline projections of the budget. Now, one thing that many people don't realize is we're sitting on $80 trillion in unfunded liabilities. $80 trillion in unfunded liabilities. And at the same time, the yield on these bonds, these treasuries, on a 10-year treasury, it's a 4.30% return. With record high inflation in America, where we are spending so much money, shipping money overseas, bringing millions of people into the country, all these newfound expenses, what country would want to invest money at a 4% return based on how we are utilizing and been spending the dollar right now, knowing that inflation is actually going to get a lot higher, especially as we do the green energy transition and we start to, invest in the infrastructure? How is that money going to be, made available? Likely high taxes, which is not going to be great for the U.S. economy, and money printing. A lot of money is going to be printed over the next couple of years. And so when you start to look at this, if you were a country, you probably wouldn't buy treasuries at a 4% return. I know I definitely would not. And so the only way in which they're going to be able to offload a lot of these treasuries is likely increasing interest rates. The Fed is going to step in, try to buy some of this to try to, hide some of this pain. But they're going to be increasing interest rates to try to bring buyers in. That's what they're going to be doing. And so when you start to look at this situation, NerdWallet, for example, commented on this a while ago, saying, what happens if the U.S. can't pay its bills, right? And they said money market funds could see volatility. Federal benefits would be suspended. Stock markets would roll. Interest rates would increase for loans. As debt ceiling negotiations linger, Americans could see rate increases on establishing lending products with variable loans, including personal and small business lines of credit, credit cards, and certain student loans. Issuers may also decrease existing credit lines. Well, of course, if you were a lender and you saw a lot of volatility in the world, you saw defaults continuing to pick up, would you lend more money or less money? You'd probably look at risk differently and probably start to be really careful on whom you lend money to and how much you actually lend to each borrower. Credit lines may have less capital to lend or may tighten their lending standards, which could make it more difficult to get new credit. Think about what this means for, say, a small business. Small businesses heavily depend on funding. And if their borrowing costs go up and they don't have consumers that are going to be able to spend more and more money to offset these costs, small businesses are going to be in trouble. And most Americans work for a small business. They don't work for large corporations. If you look at the real numbers, most Americans work for a small company. So this could all ripple through to the housing market. You even think of home equity lines of credit. Think about, everything, like auto loans. Every type of loan would continue to go up. Depending on the timing of the default and how long the effects are, rates could increase on auto loans, federal and private student loans, personal loans, small business loans. Credit card rates would rise. Americans could see rates increase on credit cards beyond what they've seen since the Fed began hiking in 2022. Credit cards, right now, retail credit cards, some of them are 32, 33%. It's absolutely crazy how expensive retail credit cards are. And traditional credit cards are between 25 and 28% interest. And they go on to say that credit cards already have higher interest rates than many other loans, so carrying a balance during these economic times is more expensive. Those with debt who are in a position to pay it off should start making moves to do so. It is also uncommon for lenders to cut credit limits. Close accounts will require higher credit scores, which I've been talking about for a while. Like putting your credit score in the 780, 800 range is more important today than ever. Because as we start walking into volatile times, what's going to happen? Lenders are going to be really, really careful on whom they lend money to, as I've mentioned. And so credit scores and getting your approval when the economy is in distress, and that's when you want to invest. Distressed real estate, distressed repo cars, being able to go out there and start to buy things. Lenders look at these actions during the Great Recession early in the pandemic, according to a 2022 report, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Mortgage rates also would be going up. Tax refunds could be delayed. It's like one big problem after the next. But, it's very fascinating because at the same exact time, it says the biggest threat to the dollar is the dominance of the U.S. economy itself, right? And then you have BRICS countries taking $45 trillion in investable wealth. Now, one of the big problems for America here is that when you look at what we're actually doing with this green energy transition, which is, they estimate that it's going to cost trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars every single year. If we're walking into a situation where we're going to be taking on a lot of expense, and this is probably not going to be a cheap type of transition, at least according to McKinsey, it's not going to be a cheap transition. And then you have India and South Africa and China and Russia, which, they have cheap oil, they have cheap labor, cheap cost of living. What are they going to have? They're going to have a major competitive advantage over America, right? And so when you have them all united together, they've taken in $45 trillion in investable wealth. This came out 6 days ago. Then countries are clamoring to join BRICS. South Africa claims as Russia takes up leadership. Right? This came out 20 days ago, about 3 weeks ago. Hong Kong, nearly 36 countries are seeking entry into China and Russia-backed BRICS economic group. Member state South Africa said Wednesday, weeks after the body expanded its membership for the first time in more than a decade, 34 countries have submitted an expression of interest in joining the bloc of major emerging economies. South African foreign minister told reporters, without naming the nations, Russia was accepting those applications after assuming rotating chairmanship of the group. And be the first member to oversee the body since its significantly expanded global footprint. At the start of the year, when Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Ethiopia, Egypt formally joined, the growing membership is widely viewed as a win for China and Russia, which will have sought to reshape the international system they see as unfairly dominated by the United States amid growing frictions with Washington and the West. So you think about this. This came out 20 days ago, and now we are going to be issuing more sanctions. What do you think is going to be happening? Right? What's going to happen? It's going to amplify and expedite the growth of BRICS. Right? And there's no stopping this train. They even estimate, this came out 7 days ago, that BRICS nations to see the highest surge in millionaire count over the next decade, exceed the rise of G7 countries. What I'm predicting is that if we see a situation where our borrowing costs go up and Americans are in big trouble, we're going to start seeing more and more companies in America start to open up shop in India, open up shop in different locations to where they have more of a leg up, and they're going to start to open up shop here, hire and more people, be able to put themselves in a position to become even more lean and mean, and they're going to be using that money, and they're going to be buying up property here in America, right? Because if you think about it, 70% of all single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes are owned by mom-and-pop investors, most of which are small business owners and everyday Americans that work for small businesses. And we walk into a situation where interest rates rise and inflation gets worse. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to have to sell these properties, sell these assets. And what do the large corporations do and smart entities do? They look at risk according to what's actually happening. And they look at opportunity according to what's actually happening. And that's the opportunity is going to continue flowing east. And that's what I think they're going to do. They're going to start to take advantage of this fall of America. It's a sad reality. I love America, but America's in really big trouble. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to happen overnight, but I think it's going to be something that's going to feel like it's going to happen overnight, because when you have $10 trillion in treasuries that has to sell this year and next year and the following year, it's like, how long can they kick this can down the road? Drop below. Let's have a conversation about this. If you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for this massive wealth transfer, we'd love to help you. At my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item in your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free strategy session for tomorrow. Catch you next video.